features first?
Yeah.
Okay, Francine.
Get it over.
Okay.
Yeah. Then I can
Knock their socks off.
Oh, am I?
Yeah. Oh, should I say something?
Just say hi, it's Francine.
Okay, Francine, she's a poet renowned in the poetry circles of New York. She has featured in numerous places. She is known for her wordplay and subtlety.
Oh, nice. Thank you. I like that. Thank
You forgot to add Flash Queen.
Yeah.
And Flash Queen. Oh!
But there's a poetry reading. But
Okay, oh, flash fiction.
Well, we
Okay.
need some flash. So.
Okay, okay.
I'll take a couple of photos of whoever.
Okay. So, thank you, Miriam. Thank you, Michael. And thank you, everybody, for being here. So, being that the world has gone, how long? Like 15?
About
10?
15 to 20 years.
15
Oh,
minutes.
15 is okay. Okay. So, being that everybody is like eclipse crazy, here's my eclipse.
Could you talk a little louder?
Sure. Here's my eclipse piece. It was, they put a little anthology together of eclipse pieces, so this is what I came up with. Slide of moon, slowly across the sun's yellow flower face, and we can't help but gather ourselves wisps of ghostly dandelion spores. We are clustered, our necks tilting away from the flat earth of our everyday. We cover our eyes with special glasses, dare to peek through pinhole viewers, and we briefly remember we are little more than bits on a galaxy sash. We are flyaway and passing, flicked off the moment we die. But here we are today for this one single held breath, with songbirds going silent, and we huddle back into that single organism we were maybe meant to be, brought together in the day dark as the moon closes off the sun like some giant held-up thumb. The eclipse and us going total, and we aren't scared, not even for a second. And then the whole thing passes back to normal, the moon going back to its part of the sky, and we scatter back apart like some unseen wish breath was blowing on us. We go back to our separate lives, the fear of death eclipsed again. Like always, we forgot the fact that one day, billions of eons from now, the sun will be hidden again, fade like a dying flower, blacked out forever and gone.
Wow.
This is a 6-sentence piece. The dead guy's phone keeps calling me. I answer, same as always, night fingers sweaty and clamped around me like a fist I can't shake out of. I was the last kiss on the dead guy's lips, all strawberry luscious but stinking of goodbye. He left after a comfort scotch or two. Later, he drove himself into a wall that was harder than unreturned love. Now when he calls, I tell him, same as always, come back, maybe we can try again. This is, thank you. This is after Nighthawks, that Edward Hopper, you know, where the guy is sitting in the counter and there's a couple next to them. After Nighthawks. It doesn't take much to sit all alone at a counter, but try it when your gal just handed you the check and you end up walking all night, end up at one of those big windowed diners where anyone passing by can look in, only no one does. And it's 2 a.m. and you order the coffee that lies mud dead on your tongue, and a couple at the other end of the counter seem to be screaming their two-ness at you. Only you take a closer look at how she is pretty enough. A red dress all come on to anyone looking, only no one does. Not the man behind the counter folded into chores, and not the man who is next to her. He isn't looking, and you know what that means, having just left your gal who hadn't looked at you for how long now? And now that you do know, you will do everything different with the open eyes of the window from the building across the street can see all of this in the ways only windows can, being filled all the time with the world coming in and out of them like it does. And you will wish there was some quiet way to do this, to take this red-dressed woman who is scanning the counter for what she doesn't even know, and the least you can do is maybe strike up a conversation, something about coffee or how blue the streets look, what with winter coming on. Keep going until you see her eyes looking up, locking with yours, crossing across that cornfield of a man she is stuck with, and you know that the most you could hope for is a spark. But that's how wildfires start. One flick of light, then another, and who knows, the root of a fire. Oops, I don't have the rest of that. Okay. That's it. It's not the end of it, but, well, you'll look on. Oh, no, I didn't actually. Oh well. Okay, sorry about that. So it's on Facebook, if you want to see it. Okay, so let's see if I have everything here for this one. This is called Plate Spinner, and I hope some of you are old enough, like I am, to remember the Ed Sullivan Show. Okay, Plate Spinner. I was probably 11 when my father started spinning plates. He'd been watching the Ed Sullivan Show, and in between Petula Clark and Sergio Franchi, there was a man all tucked up, spinning 15 plates, 5 in the air on spindly sticks, 5 on the table. And as he ran back and forth to keep everything going at once, the orchestra, trumpet heavy behind him, the audience's rippled applause. My father hadn't been out of his armchair, leather and patched, since the accident. The accident being our 12-year-old neighbor Jimmy on his 10-speed, knocking the briefcase out of my father's coming home from his crappy job hand, and hurling him to the ground. My father's leg breaking like it was made of cheap china. I always hated Jimmy a little because of how he told all the kids I had lemon pox, which isn't even a thing, but after the accident I hated Jimmy even more. My father sat in that chair for months, even after he healed, even after the doctor said he was fine and could walk again and go back to work. Instead of doing either of those, my father seemed to sink even deeper into his chair. This accident, he says, was the best thing that ever happened. My mother didn't agree. She was at work all day at the flower shop. "We're not going to starve," she said, "but a man has got to do." "Do," my father scoffed. "I do all day for a punk half my age, always telling me, call this client, go make a sale." He shook his tired head. "Enough," my father said. "It's enough." And that's when he saw the plate spinner. "God," he said, "if I could only move like that." The plate spinner eased back and forth, twirling the sticks with the plates on top, making sure this one twirled, and then that one. And as soon as they were all in play, he'd set the plates on the table in motion. One little wrist flick, and they were all of them turning in the same direction at once. The next day my father got up out of his chair. When my mother said, "Oh, how wonderful, now you could go back to work," he said, "No, this is not work." He went to our china closet and took out 5 plates, bone white, with tiny little flowers along the edge. He set them on the dining room table. He wasn't ready yet for the sticks, but he seemed convinced he could handle the plates on a flat surface. Certain he could make them dance. And he did. My mother and I held our breath as the plates and he came to life at once. My father was able to find a rhythm in those plates that he had lost everywhere else. They seemed to love his touch. My mother didn't seem very concerned about the china. "Oh, we never use it," she said. "And if it makes him do something, I'm glad." From there on, every night after dinner, we were eating together as a family again. My father would clear everything off the table. He'd lay down a linen tablecloth. The linen, he said, keeps the plates from sliding off. Then he took the plates out of the china closet and set them nicely in a row. He looked them over and put his finger under the rim of the first one, then the second, just as the man on TV had. He moved on his leg, which seemed like it had never been broken, as if he were leading his own line of ballerinas, all tutus and pirouettes, and my father waiting for the trumpets to come up, followed surely by the applause.
Wow.
Okay, so I'm gonna read a couple from, I'll read one from Radio Water, which is, I have a couple of these for sale. My new flash fiction book from Roadside Press. And I'll just read one. Rumble. On the bus to her mother's funeral, and Maisie forgot to bring money. No point to turn back now. Already Ohio. Maisie has no credit and no friends to text for cash. Her mother, turns out, died from alcohol poisoning. No surprise. Stepfather Dave called with the news, said he'd pay for the bus ticket and all she had to do was pick it up. Said he'd be waiting for her at the station. Maisie only met Stepfather Dave the one time. She was 18 and succulent. He offered her a Coke and Maisie could swear he slipped something in it. She told him she wasn't thirsty. The bus is rolling through Ohio and it all seems postcard now. 10 years the hell away from here and it's been nothing but server jobs, a beady boyfriend or two, and yeah, succulent isn't her anymore. The man sitting next to her is sweaty and suited and eating a sandwich. Ham with lettuce from the looks of it, toasty and warm from the smell of it. He picked it up at the rest stop 10 miles back. The hole in Maisie's stomach widening like the Ohio countryside. Maisie's wallet back home on the nightstand, plump with her last $200, and Jack, the guy she left in her apartment, will find the cash and use it to drink a hole into the universe. An hour later, the bus pulls into the last stop, her stop, the screech of brakes, the bus lowering into a hiss. The driver gets out and starts pulling suitcases out of the bus belly. Stepfather Dave is waiting, leaned up against the dead river green of his station wagon. He is scanning the people getting off the bus one by one. His face goes off like a light bulb about to blow when he sees Maisie, waves her over. She gets into the car, the suitcase in front of her scrunching up her legs. Stepfather Dave says, "You look good. The city punched you up a touch, but I like it." The tiny rumble of her stomach, the engine starting up. He offers her a Coke, this time with the cap still on. She takes it and unscrews it. He digs in his pocket and says, All's I got is this chocolate bar." His eyes go from the road to her thighs and back again. Outside, the pure empty of everything around them, in front of them, and when he unwraps a candy bar with a single expert motion, she takes it. And I'm just going to read a couple more. This is from a chapbook from a few years ago, and I have copies in like $5 each if you want. Not all fires burn the same. Okay. And I'll just read two from here. It's called Instructions for My Funeral, and it's written in a man's point of view. Buy me a new suit, for crying out loud. The suits in my closet reek of weakness and my mistress's musky sweat. Tell my wife how ridiculous love became after all those years. Tell my children that I should have hired other fathers to make up for the one I wasn't. Invite my parents. Never mind that they are long buried. Write out an invitation and mail it to their graves. Most important, make sure that I am really dead. All those stories you hear about fingernail scratches and knuckle prints on coffin lids. Stick me with needles, set fire to my toes, and then, when you are very, very certain, hire a harpist, dress her up like an angel, starve her until she is translucent and wan. When the mourners arrive, sit them too close together. Give them something to complain about other than my death. Afterwards, take everyone out for coffee. Remind them that I didn't make them go to the cemetery, and that as they bite into their squishy donut, a hole in the world is being filled in, and I am at the center of it. Tell the waitress the check is on me. And I'll close with this, because poets and fiction writers are all a bunch of liars. So, in my poems, sometimes I have children. Daughters mostly, because I know their routines. flat irons, and tampons. To invent boys, I would need to ask questions, learn to talk sports. In my poems, sometimes my children appreciate me. Pretend daughter Fiona says things like, "Mom, if it wasn't for you, I'd be living in an essay for crying out loud." She's right. If I were a made-up child, I would prefer the crinoline swish of a simile, so much kinder than the hard angles of nonfiction. A pretend son wouldn't be so generous. He would say he's a lie I tell myself to feel better about what I haven't done. I would laugh at him. Pretend mothers can do that. Then I would sit him down and tell him, my poems aren't lies at all. They're just the truths that didn't happen. Thank you.
Bravo. Okay. Okay.
I don't know, I have a feeling he's standing up there.
Okay. Now we have, I think, Pete DOLACK. Pete DOLACK is somebody who is a great poet. Also, his books in terms of history and economics are incredible. So well researched, I gotta say. You learn so much and you're entertained. Pete DOLACK is also a social activist whose humanity, his sense of compassion, and his sense of like love for humanity is incredible and inspiring. My moral compass, Pete DOLACK.
Thank you for such a lovely introduction, Miriam. That's most lovely here. So yeah, I have an assortment of books with me, if anyone's interested. Some of them are even poetry. So I'll start with those. All right, here. All right, well, I've arbitrarily opened up to this one, so I guess this is the one I will read from my first chapbook. Space, the final frontier, which you can enjoy in a few minutes as soon as our McDonald's liftoff is complete. You can remove your seatbelts when the Golden Arches sign is turned off. We hope your trip from Cape Coca-Cola will be enjoyable and safe. Now, if you all look out the right side windows, you can see the neon orbiting Budweiser sign. Enjoy it while you can. The sign's orbit is already beginning to decay and will plummet to Earth in a fiery crash. But don't worry, Anheuser-Busch will be launching a new sign even bigger than this one. It'll be so bright you won't be able to see the stars during the 4 hours it will take to cross the sky. But won't it be worth it to see Budweiser blazing across the night sky? Now if you look a bit further to your right, that bright red object you see is the Lockheed Martin planet Mars. It sure is fitting a defense contractor is able to put its name on a planet named for the god of war. Fortunately, the planet didn't sustain too much damage when Boeing and Lockheed Martin went to war over the naming rights. In fact, Mars will look better than ever once the terraforming project is finished. Lockheed Martin's name will cover the entire planet from 45 degrees north to 45 degrees south. Then every time you see the planet through your telescope, instead of seeing all those boring reds and greens, you'll see a beautiful, full-color company logo. Now, if you look toward your left down at the Earth, you should be able to see the Exxon Pacific Ocean. Isn't it wonderful how company engineers were able to arrange their oil rigs to spell out Exxon? They say the Exxon sign is almost 3,000 miles across. To think those silly environmentalists complained. We should all be proud to pay our 10% tax surcharge for it. Now, in a few more minutes, North America will rotate into view. We'll have plenty of time to see the General Motors sign where North Dakota and South Dakota used to be. The sign is at best at night when the blinking lights are on. They say you can see the sign all the way out to the asteroid belt. Enjoy your sightseeing, passengers, but don't forget to take your seats and buckle up when you see the flashing Pepsi holograph. That means it's time for the Pepsi landing. By the way, you want to have your binoculars handy then. The General Mills space station will be orbiting into whew. The half-mile-long Wheaties box is a sight not to be missed. When we land, we hope you'll enjoy your stay on the Microsoft Moon. The Apollo 11 reenactment is held twice a day. You'll get goosebumps when you hear the holograph of Neil Armstrong say, That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for Windows 95. Now, if you need to ask directions after landing, please don't forget the region where Apollo 11 landed is no longer the Sea of Tranquility. It's now known as the Sea of Bill Gates. Of course, before you can sightsee, you'll first need to clear customs. Be sure to have your documentation from General Electric ready. No contact with direct sunlight is permitted without advance payment of royalties to GE, which now owns sun rights. You'll never forget your stay on the Microsoft moon. Who could even imagine what it would be like without advertising? And, oh yeah, there's this one too. And let me see here, because there's other folks in here besides me here. Yes, here we are. Shades of gray. Yes, here we go. This is a view from South Succotash and the death of the great communicator. This one is actually a bit of a challenge. I know as many people like to take challenges. I'm not too inclined for this, but this one I couldn't pass up. It was like the late Jackie Sheeler, after Reagan died, had challenged everybody to write a poem, and this is the one that I came up with. But who will weep for the dead? Their tears flow, but they are not tears of relief. Yes, I know style is all, and style there was. Indifference to the lives of millions thrown away would be enough, but with a smile yet? That damned optimism painted on and frozen in place as the national Cheshire cat in the dark, far removed from the crescent moon sinking above the killing fields of Central America. If he had to kill those hundreds of thousands by his own hands instead of hiring mercenaries, could he have kept smiling? What an exhausting job. He would have had to start at dawn most days. Thank you for participating in America's glorious morning, Senor. Now please turn your neck a little more to the right. I wonder why his public relations agents didn't think of this, single-handedly wiping out the communist menace. What a photo op it would have been. Then he could have injected homosexuals with AIDS at night, single-handedly wiping out the gay menace. Well, Mommy, do I have to kill all these people just to help on strike? Even if the death squads had gone on strike, he wouldn't have fired them. The Tsar always said the Black Hundreds were fine fellows. There isn't any point in going back to the past if you aren't going to steal from it. Would there be weeping if he were simply a cowboy deus ex machina, a vision of America as a happy theme park, all shiny under sunny skies built on the bones of others? It's the same as any product that can't be sold unless it meets a need. He told you it was good to be the bully. Being relieved of guilt is the greatest gift. He told you it was righteous to hate. No one can be wrong when waving a flag. He told you God wants you to have cheap oil. If it's in the Bible, it must be true. Shut up and go shopping. It's still a program to rally around. If he had better relation sense, Genghis Khan would have said it's morning in Mongolia. But in those days, there were no euphemisms, and the leader had to get his hands dirty. War is peace. Asking for enough to feed your kids is greed. Pollution can be ended by cutting down all the trees. He believed, just as those who weep.
Kind of reminds me of the orange one.
Yeah.
All right.
The orange one.
And here's something new, unusually short for me. I seem to be very prone to writing long poems for some reason, but here's an exception. Just printed this out yesterday, in fact. Star Trek isn't a documentary. If it were, the Vulcans wouldn't drop in to give us some advice, wouldn't want to join the Federation with us. They and the Andorians and the rest of the galaxy would place Earth under a quarantine. But even if warp drive were possible, we wouldn't invent it, because plundering your planet until you regress to feudalism doesn't give you a future. Cancer isn't a future. Creating an economic system that can't be controlled until it converts all of the Earth into short-term profit isn't logical, no matter what planet you call home. Forced inland by rising seas, abandoning cities that can't be fed and dying from the heat, not able to drink the water, our descendants are not likely to think the profits of a handful extracted at any cost was a good trade-off for them. Cancer is bad for people. It's no better for a planet. There is no capitalism in Star Trek, otherwise there would be no future. So, geez, seem to have picked a lot of heavy stuff here. I don't usually try to break it up a little bit more. So, all right, here's something that's not such a dire topic. That damn demon was drunk again the other night. Ghosts are supposed to be invisible, graceful like air from the fourth dimension, not banging and breaking things at 3 a.m. Go haunt yourself. I'm up. Darkness, Drimp's contempt. The best cover, as that damn demon knows. I'll have to imagine that pile of books tumbling. I just know they are. Phase shifts announce themselves. There's this pause in the dark. Thinking. You think about it. Thinking doesn't stop it. It shifts. You just know it. Feel it. These phase shifts don't happen on their own, but they could be quieter. The fourth dimension is out there somewhere, in the weightless, empty dark, in the crevices of weightlessness. Without boundary, it stretches past the horizon. Silent, but you can hear it. Think about it. Think. I'm up. All right, let me do this one here. So, all right, how we doing on time here?
I got not a clue. I said, I don't know.
All right,
Is anybody timing this?
all right,
I
okay,
guess
well, I've
I
got two
should-
more to go here, so
Oh, okay.
That sounds good.
Yeah, two more, here we go.
I guess I'll just go ahead and read them then. All right, well, you're all still paying attention, so that's a very good sign. All right, this is Black Hills. All right, I got some travel pieces here. I was actually going to go and try to make a kamikaze run up to see the eclipse tomorrow and rent a car and leave about 8 in the morning and hope we didn't get hopelessly stuck in traffic in the Adirondacks, but it really wasn't realistic, so I'm going to miss it. I'm kind of bummed out about that. I mean, I've only known about it for like years that this was going to happen, but, well, sometimes you just don't prepare. What can you do?
Why don't you just go over to the west side, or where the river is?
Oh, it's just
Too easy.
wasn't a realistic plan. Plus, we might have got stuck on the Northway and missed it anyway, and done all that for nothing. But it's all moot. That's all moot now. Okay, here's a travel piece. Black Hills, kind of a actually written after I actually was in the Black Hills some years ago. Interesting place to be. All right, an island. Enough stalling. Let's read the poem. An island on the plains is America in microcosm. Natural beauty and insult, packaged for instant consumption. Both are first seen at a distance, the endless signs dappled on the sunflower fields and ranches along Highway 90, ceaselessly proclaimed tourist traps tidily locked in the 1950s, an era no more innocent than before or since. The mockery apparent with even a modicum of history or taste. Later, the hills loom on that distant horizon as startling apparition after so much space. The dark pines swallow all that sunlight, black only in contrast to the scorched expanse below, but yes, a contrast. Hiking the backside of Harney Peak, the attractions are subtle, and you know many were here long before you. A spiritual history gently makes itself known at a clearing or among a vaguely geometric cluster of tall boulders, the pines enclosing it all, and you can understand why this was the last stand. These hills were defended as sacred from those who held only gold and silver as sacred, and when even Crazy Horse couldn't defend them any longer, voluntarily surrendering, the quiet warrior was asked to attend a meeting, but on arrival was taken to prison where he resisted and was killed by bayonet. His likeness never captured by photo or paint. Death by such trickery was not sufficient, and so a giant mountain carving of Crazy Horse is slowly chiseled, desecrating one people's sacred space, another people's national forest, and one man's memory. At the gate, you are asked $18 to see this because the sculptor, who is crazy with a small c, wants this to be a monument to free enterprise, but it's taken so long because of long timeouts of fundraising while refusing government grants that it is falling apart even though still half finished. A quintuple insult, a feat rare even for American capitalism. Not far away is Mount Rushmore, a feat of triumphalism and vacuity that thumbs you in the eye, and you can only blink in amazement that such arrogance could be mounted so proudly. All this and the other commercial attractions so lacking in dignity, but almost subtle in comparison, lovingly promoted in the village of Keystone in the valley below. It seems no one lives there. Keystone exists solely to demonstrate humanity's triumph over nature and sense. How the hills must weep at night softened by erosion, yet dramatic, an understated counterpoint to the Rockies. From an orbital perch, you watch the weather move in from the west, the flat earth curve away to the east, and you're where you're supposed to be. The pines follow you to the top, and it doesn't matter if lunch is good. The contradictions are left at a lower elevation. Only later do you wonder at the need for any artificial stimulation. From the time when the treaties were broken and the mining began, such a place is seen only as a profit center. And don't sniff at your ancestors, that is as true today. I wonder what the biggest insult is. And I will conclude with this, and then we'll go on with the program. So looking forward to hearing from everybody else in the open, and Bonnie, who's still going to feature, right behind me. All right, another travel piece. This one actually based on a trip I went to Yosemite Park some years ago. Actually, I've been to a whole lot of national parks, both famous and obscure. It's one great thing about this country. The national parks in this country really are terrific, especially out west. All right, the magic of the market comes to a national park near you.
It's mine.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The couple in a tent next door bring in their takeout pizza despite all the warnings against keeping food after dark. That's good because if the bears come, they'll attack their tent and not mine. Though the bears ought to get paid for making an appearance since this is a for-profit park. I don't know what the government would do if Yosemite stopped being profitable. One concessionaire already controls everything in the park. Would it be allowed to foreclose? Maybe this is the first step in privatizing the parks, and then it'll be made so expensive to visit that only yuppies and the rich will be able to stay there. We'll sneak into the park disguised as rangers, then plant food inside the tents to draw out the bears, putting new meaning into the concept of eat the rich. But too much of this will get the bears fired. No one will have civil service protection once the parks are privatized, certainly not the bears. It would be a sad sight to see bears in the unemployment office with few options. They might wind up in the military, hopelessly out of their element in the desert, unless this is seen as an acclimation program for the bears. Under full privatization, parks will reach their full private potential. All the hunting licenses that can be sold will be sold, the trees cut down until the parks are reduced to desert, and now the bears can come home when their tours of duty in the desert are finished because now they'll be acclimated to the parks. But with nothing left but barren ground and a few disgruntled bears who are hungry too because there's nothing left to scavenge, the land will be of no use to anyone except as target practice for the military, and the bears will already be used to bombs dropping. A new way to see the nation. Bomb Yosemite! Bomb Yellowstone! Bomb Arcadia! The psychological benefits of parks bombing will be immeasurable. If you can bomb your own parks, bombing other countries will be even easier, making it easier to export these ideals. More humanitarian bombing will lead to new privatized governments elsewhere, which will sell bombing rights to their parks cheaper, enabling the military to cancel its national parks leases. There will finally be no more profits to be made. The private parks company will sell the parks back to the government, and they will again be open to all, which will be fine by the rich since they won't be interested in traveling to a wasteland. And the newly admitted will plant a tree. Thank you all.
I have to say, if Kurt Vonnegut was a poet,
Right.
he'd be Pete Dolack.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, next up is Bonnie Feinberg, who is
Finberg.
Finberg, who is a legend in the poetry scene. Yes,
News to
She's-
me.
used to be.
I said news to me.
News to you, you are a legend. Yes, you are a legend.
And a wonderful photographer.
Oh, okay, all right.
Thank you.
So,
For too long, I don't know what's going on.
we are lucky to be
You'll be just
raised by you, and here we go, Bonnie Finberg.
Thanks, Miriam. Thanks, Mike. I don't
And
know if I
I'm-
can live up to that. I'm very nervous now.
Oh, and I love your pattern, that is very cool.
That's nice,
Yeah.
yeah.
It also doubles as my
Yeah.
pajamas. I really don't leave the house very much. Anyway, Okay, this is called previous work experience. He sucked his thumb, his most encrusted secret which I now betray. I, sole custodian of the vault of him, witness, bearer of his shame, his rage, watching him breathe soft like a baby next to me, lips pulsing full and round, his sculptor's thumb large and hairy, his hammer hands at rest, eyes cradled under his lids, looking in where love could safely exist. Rage ignited by shame consumes. It was in our bed, in our clothes, our bodies, our breath. It grew in darkness. It grew in the glare. I was born monogamous. From the first man I ever loved, my father, the likes of whom there was no other, how people worship God, how I loved every man I ever loved, mostly boys, the boy in the man, this man. I convinced him we should go to Europe. I'd gotten access to a stolen Amex card that was circulating. We took a cheap Icelandic flight, rented a car in Amsterdam, and drove through Luxembourg, Belgium, Holland, finally arriving in eastern France. We skirted Paris, circling in a westward arc, then circling south, agreeing to take our time, content in the countryside where for 50 cents a night we camped in farmers' fields. In the morning, fresh croissant and heart-shaped Normandy cheese were delivered to our tent. Young provincial New Yorkers, afraid of disappointment, we questioned the romance of Paris, maybe just a fabrication of our shared mythology. How could it compare to this warm, bucolic summer of food and wine, earthy sex in the unplowed fields of Burgundy, everything infused with the scent of farm animals, sweet hay, and cow manure. Is my time up?
No.
We'd get there eventually, but right now, we weren't far from the Brittany coast. I had barely crossed the border between child and adult, still enchanted by storybook memories, a costume doll my aunt gave when I was 7. I imagined people in clogs and starched white coifs, apple crepe. He knew this. Who knew me better? After pleading my case and his finally relenting, we left Rouen and drove further west. Castles, rivers, cows, wine, cheese, sausage, bread, wine, churches, pastry, chateau, wine, drifting backwards into childhood, following animate shadows across soft hills, into the perfume of the new, the ordinary beauty of other people's lives. I was 25. He was 27, behind the wheel of a rented Fiat, looking down the unknown road ahead. He really didn't want to go to Brittany. He became a grumpy 12-year-old who didn't get his way. He suspected danger lurking at every turn, driving through some town he'd marked on a map in red marker to document our journey. He had an epic freak-out. Attempts to diffuse his anxiety and paranoia backfired. He said he was going to crash into a tree if I didn't stop talking. I stopped. Because I believed love heals all wounds. I still believe, to some extent, that love heals most wounds. It isn't love's failure, it's what it changes into. But then, love was still in development. We never got further west than Normandy, a little hazy on the chronology. I don't remember how we made our way to Paris. Paris did not disappoint. We arrived at dusk, l'heure bleue, before I knew its name, golden lights lining the bridges, shimmering on the Seine. We found a room on the Quai de la Tournelle for $6 a night, a small, airy room with brown enamel walls. The shared toilet and shower were down the hall, but the room had a sink, so he peed in there. The bed sank in the middle, inscribed by ghosts of lovers long dead. Notre Dame Cathedral across the river filled the frame of huge open windows, big as doors. He photographed me in a ray of light, naked by the window, arms folded over breasts, gazing at the cathedral. The streets smelled of coffee and butter. We ate cheap Vietnamese food, street crepe, bakery sandwiches, bought cheese and sausage at the market. There was an organ grinder, gypsy jazz in a flea market cafe. I was home. He thought we were spending too much of our limited American Express checks. $6 a night, versus 50 cents a night camping. So, back on the road with the tent. I'm foggy about where we ended up after that. The Val de Loire, I think. I remember fragmentary things in no logical order. Soccer tourt in Luxembourg, driving through Burgundy, making up stupid songs about Bourgogne, laughing. We settled for a few days at a campsite on the bank of the Loire in the shadow of the castle of Sully-sur-Loire. In the morning, for coffee, we'd walk into the village cafe where workers in blue overalls stood chatting at the bar, drinking watered wine for breakfast. Like unsupervised children, we ate an assortment of miniature pastries and wine for lunch. Heavy, lazy bees hovered over the sweets. We drank and ate, watching swans in the moat, pausing between bites to roll our eyes in ecstasy. Does anybody have a tissue?
Yes.
Sorry. I think I have allergies. One afternoon, oh, wait, sorry. Thank you.
Actually, français. Voilà. Here,
Thank you.
here's the other half.
Oh, sorry. I don't have COVID, don't worry. Where am I? One afternoon, arriving back at the campsite after breakfast, the owner, knowing we were Americans, informed us of Nixon's resignation. He spoke in French, wildly gesticulating across the language barrier. At one point, he mimed holding a machine gun and made the sound of a barrage of bullets. In one last flourish, he shouted, "Fini!" and drew his flattened hand across his throat. We got the message. We thanked him for the good news and went off to celebrate. Every day was a celebration. It was good. One night, back in New York, we were smoking a joint at the table, talking, laughing. He got all honest and vulnerable. He confessed. At art school, he'd fucked a classmate, Bertha Gart, a creepy little monkey thing I'd met a couple of times at his school events, a stringy-haired 5'0" with a sausage body. More than shock or rage, I was angry, hurt, diminished by the mediocrity of my rival, her. He confessed multiple orgasms, going down on her 5 times over a span of time I found unnerving. What was he trying to prove by telling me this? I became the priest inside the confessional, handed the burden of another's sin with the expectation of mercy and forgiveness, despite the horrified human under the priestly vestments. I swallowed hard and took it in stride, strengthening our bond. He said he'd always thought I'd fucked the director of the theater company I was in. That was 2 years ago. Did you? A deeper intimacy, a safe depository for my justifiable infidelity. I did. Yes, I did. He came at me, throwing his full body behind his blows, bare teeth jutting from swollen gums, his dark eyes jaundiced and blood-glazed. My arms failed to defend my body, trying to reconcile the safety of the moment before, vanished with the press of imminent death. I lived, though lurid Rorschachs painted my face and arms and the roots of my hair were on fire. We didn't see friends, certainly not parents, for a couple of weeks. He was always very sorry afterward, curled up in the corner on the floor. The florid beast on his face withdrew like an inhalation, then exhaled a gray pallor, deflated lips the color of dust. At 25, I learned 2 crucial things. First, it's bullshit that stoned people aren't capable of violence. Second, revenge is not always sweet. But I stayed, because love. In the months that followed, he set upon me more frequently with the voracity of white blood cells waiting in ambush, somehow making himself the victim. He suffered his secrets like a contagion. Slowly, I began to diminish, ever vigilant for signs of love or signs of further betrayal. I died by nose too large, hair too thin, breasts too much or not enough, lack of imagination, too broken for anyone to fix, unable to salvage the scraps, doomed to mediocrity for the rest of my days. Occasionally, I picked up barely formed signals, bursts of clarity that promised better reception. If only I could get a good signal on the antenna. After a brief respite and the aid of psychoanalysis, we decided to have a baby. Despite all the hours we spent microscopically rummaging around our own and each other's traumatic pasts, it turned out pregnancy was not a safe harbor. I was about 8 months pregnant when he threw a blue willow coffee pot at me. It broke and I collapsed on the floor in tears. So much for his psychoanalysis. Mine was progressing. His shape-shifting went underground when our son was born. He smiled more in love with this perfect little version of himself. But this mother that I had now become was irreconcilable with the woman he'd fallen in love with. His temper, now somewhat restrained by the presence of this new innocent life, made little tremors, but the earth held its ground. Rage lay dormant just below the surface like a tulip bulb. All around it, indifference pushed up through the dirt like a weed. He got himself a separate studio, spent long hours away, began going to gallery openings without me, attended social events alone where he enjoyed the attention of adoring males and females. Of course, he bestowed love and attention to our son, though less physical now. He became instructive, a tender teacher, but 2 or 3 times a year, ignited by some hair trigger with his child beyond his sight, the father disappeared, and with it the reality of his child. Though he never laid a hand on his son, his hypnotic demons made him forget his child, how a child's moments are delicate blossoms growing best in a balance of light and darkness, wilting with too much heat, blown away with too much wind. It was a blindness I too became infected with. We paid no mind to the acoustics, the words he spoke, my scary scream, the screaming of a terrified animal that hates your bloody guts, no holds barred, bounced against 25 by 100 square feet of walls, ceiling, and floorboards. Then, for no apparent reason, he stopped speaking to me. We slept under the same roof, in the same bed. He vaporized into cold indifference. It was on the 2nd or 3rd night of this that I moved to a foam mattress on the other side of the loft. I couldn't endure his sleeping next to me without word or touch. Months went by. People came over. He reveled in being the centerpiece of the usual lively conversation. He never addressed or looked at me. But I stayed because love. Because this child had the inborn right to all there was to give. This little boy whose heart and mind were just becoming. His joy and curiosity were spilling over. It was contagious, a fresh, uncomplicated love that is the beginning of all love. One night, he invited my tall painter friend Adrienne to an exclusive artist's dinner. She was happy to oblige, a double betrayal. Adrienne had a deep-throated, snarky charm. She was a 6-foot, wiry androgyne who never wore a bra. Her wardrobe mainly consisted of white Fruit of the Loom t-shirts whose only adornment were the protrusions of her tiny nipples, her long back ending at the waist of faded paint-splattered jeans, black loafers, no socks. This drove men wild. She made, I'm going to skip that part. The next night, she stood next to me while I washed dishes. She described in great detail their fancy muckety-muck dinner, laughing that people thought she was his wife. When was it enough? It's hard to pinpoint when I began to reintegrate the fragments of myself. I began to see more clearly how everything that was wrong could be made right. I was 34, the mother of a 4-year-old son, a functioning brain and body. 34, when mortality is on the horizon, close enough to warrant urgency, but far enough to allow for adjustments. I began to own my well-earned flaws, mine to name, to each his own, every man for himself. The mirror took his place. 34. I looked long and hard. My nose wasn't too big for my face. My ass wasn't too flat. I had assets. I began to inoculate myself by focusing on other things. Other things I found were quite compelling. Love may be perishable, but desire persists. I got an asymmetrical haircut and a rich mahogany rinse. Bought a sheer ivory silk blouse at a boutique sale, a deep ruby red lipstick at the 99-cent store. He hated red lipstick. His mother wore it. Funny, Hitler hated red lipstick too. I began graduate school, spending long immersive hours in the library, became the pride of my professors. I was writing poetry again, in a notebook I kept with me all the time. One evening, getting ready to go out, I put on a new dress, a loose cotton weave of black and gray. It had a dropped waist and attached sash that rested just below the hip, a graceful homage to the 1920s that I loved. It completed the girl-to-woman thing I was going for. I had started wearing Chanel No. 5 and drinking martinis. He stared at me for a moment. "You look like a doctor's wife." I knew what he was getting at. We didn't match anymore. I think he was getting scared. Even I was scared, watching myself come into focus. At some point, he told me he didn't want me to go to the openings with him. "You make me feel self-conscious." "It's not like I hover by your side. I go off by myself, talk to people." He hesitantly agreed. We'd meet later after a carpentry job he was doing. It was a bleak Thursday evening in November. I arrived an hour early at Leo Castelli. Free champagne, good lighting, a dark-haired man with pale skin. He said he was a journalist, spoke in a soft voice, never taking his eyes off of me. We talked about books. He asked for my number. I said, "I'll call you." We talked on the phone a couple of times. He suggested we meet behind the Prometheus statue at Rockefeller Center. It was very early when I got off the subway, so I stopped into St. Patrick's for a walk around in some warmth and peace. I walked from there to Rockefeller Center. It was the night they were lighting the Christmas tree. A mob of tourists and news cameras had encamped, filling every available space in full view of the TV cameras. As backdrop, the gold Prometheus hovered above a golden fire, water gushing down below. Cheerful gawkers stood, crushed together, excited they were present at something wonderful and famous. Being small in a crowd allows you to maneuver to the front without shoving, like a rodent. I slipped between bodies to claim a space. Finally, penned in behind the statue, I needed to be enticingly visible to my date while remaining a dot in the crowd to the cameras. Spotlit by 1,000-watt bulbs, I embraced the challenge, a step towards something enticingly dangerous that I couldn't identify yet. But in hindsight, it was the beginning of not giving a shit, an on-road to the Nirvana highway. We managed to find each other. He suggested the Oak Room for drinks. We sat in a booth in the window and talked in low voices about our lives. We talked about the art world, literature, leaving out our messes. I talked about my graduate studies, poetry, my 4-year-old son, and, saying it out loud for the first time, a marriage may be ready for history. He told me he saw me coming down the stairs at Castelli's and bet his friend he could get my number. I was feeling it. I wasn't hungry. I'm never hungry when I'm horny. But I didn't want to drink on an empty stomach, so I ate a salad. Then I drank a lot of red wine. We were in anticipatory agreement about what would follow. He took me home in a cab to his East 3rd Street walk-up. We had sex. I went to the bathroom and noisily threw up. I squeezed some toothpaste onto my finger and rubbed it on my tongue and across my teeth. I returned to bed hoping the toothpaste masked the odor of vomit on my breath. He asked, "Was it that bad?" I insisted it wasn't, even though he hadn't been fully erect the whole time, and though not bad enough to make me throw up. Yeah, it was that bad. He told me some woman had broken up with him. He looked up without making eye contact, his face losing some of its softness. He said she was a woman he'd been seeing for a couple of years. They'd met at work. She was the one who broke it off, probably still in her 20s. She'd figured it out. I felt a mixture of admiration and inadequacy, though I embraced my increased status as revenge fuck. "Well, maybe you'll work it out," I said, not really caring one way or the other. I wasn't looking for love. I was desired, and that was enough. Besides, he wasn't all that. I looked at him in the crumpled sheets, naked, his soft body made less appealing by the paleness that had seemed so attractive when he was clothed. He looked vulnerable, his penis lying against his thigh in resignation. "What about your son?" he asked. "How does he figure into all of this?" "If mommy's happy, baby's happy," I smiled, trying to keep it flirtatious, looking around for my shoes. He walked me to the door and put his hand on my head in what felt like a rejection letter, saying, Thank you for sending us your work, but it's not right for us. Call me, he said. I walked back to Mercer's, stopping in the empty street to upchuck a distilled version of what had just happened in my notebook. Shadows of aspirational pleasure, eroticism, poorly disguised in Greek mythology, metaphor that any intelligent paranoid could decode. Anyway, I had a lover, sort of. Arriving home after a mostly unsatisfying attempt at cheating, I got off the freight elevator and walked the length of the loft, put my coat and bag down on a chair opposite where he sat, smoking a cigarette, trying to read my face. I must have looked like I was swinging from a helium balloon with a slow leak. He definitely saw something. I doubt he could discern the amalgam of triumphant high, disappointment, and the knowledge that salad and red wine don't mix. We were in bed, lights out, eyes closed, not yet asleep. I felt him slink out of bed and saw him walk over to the chair where I'd left the bag with my notebook containing the flimsily disguised poem. He was on his way to the bathroom with it when I jumped out of bed and began grabbing at it. Hey, what the fuck? Hey! After a tug of war, I wrested it from his hands and threw it in the far back of the storage area among the confusion of boxes and broken chairs and cleaning implements. Clothing piled chaotically on various surfaces. I convinced myself it would be impossible to find any way I really needed to lie down. The next morning at breakfast...
This isn't gonna be another 10 minutes, is it?
No, I'm sorry. Am I going too long?
Yeah, it's
Yes.
going over, yeah.
Yeah, you went over.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I timed it, but okay.
Well, thank you so much, though.
Okay.
Well, I wasn't saying immediately, but.
No, I mean, I just have...
It was.
Yeah. Good,
Oh,
good,
oh,
good.
okay, you're on the
Yeah,
last page?
Yeah,
Just, okay.
Oh, you're on the last page, oh.
yeah. Okay, the next morning at breakfast, he confronted me. He found it. He found it. And he knew it wasn't about him. The next morning at breakfast, he confronted me, disregarding our 4-year-old alone in the bath. I brought up Berthegard, his indifference, his popularity among the Thursday night free wine circuit. The hairs on his back rose like bayonets, knuckles straining against the cracking surface of his skin, his slavering, inexhaustible rage. I ran to the exit door at the other end of the loft, my ghost hands reaching to turn the heavy police lock. He moved with unearthly speed, grabbed my hair, and beat a murderous rhythm into the brick wall with my head. I'm screaming, afraid he'll kill me. 50 feet away, our child is being quiet in the tub. I wanted to stop. Later, after a few hours, he said he loved me. The next day, I changed the locks, which is not the end of this long story. Sorry.
Well, I want to thank our 3 features for 3 excellent readings. It really, and I think after all of that intensity and everything, I think we should have a break of like 5 or 7 minutes or something, take a little break for a while.
Remember everybody, Michael gets
Oh, yeah,
$5.
please, if you're,
Michael gets $5.
well, I would very much like $5.
You got it?
Okay.
You put it in the...
Do you want to switch so I can be just
As a close friend of mine who's also so talented. Okay, Jean! Jean Dickey!
I may miss, if I miss your reading of this thing, I'm really,
This is called Subway. I'm not cool. I don't have a cool job. I wait on the platform, pressing a fingernail into the plump flesh of my arm. I hate the stink of this place. I hate the noise, especially live music that's supposed to be fun. I don't love the mystery of the dark tunnel. There is none. Either the train will arrive on time or it won't. I'm blind once I get on, in theory, because there's nothing to see outside except the dark. My body senses every bump on the track and where in the tunnel the train will halt, just for a moment. I hang suspended with the rats and the thing that ate my heart. Inside, the light glares. I have to close my eyes before humanity stares me down. Thank you. The This is my attempt at a sonnet. It's called In the Beauty Salon, I Become a Child Again. Something's wrong with me. I can't sit still. It's like I'm 7 again and forced in a chair to endure Mr. Tom's scissors against my will. I arch my back and receive unbalanced hair. I blame my mom, Mr. Tom, Osvaldo and Manuel, who formed a cabal to make me ugly as sin. Mom conspiring in Italian with her foreign friends to tell them to cut my hair no lower than my chin. I'm arthritic now, and the pedicure chair is high. The aesthetician and I speak Spanish. My nails hurt now because my skin is thin and dry and creates such horrid things like flakes and scales. But I need long hair, pink nails, and magenta toes. I must compose myself so no rebellion shows. And this is office party. Last night in my dream, a dying fawn sent a message. The belle of the ball was gone. Linda and her twin believed in Jesus, and they knew how to dance up a storm. Now there's only one to swing a double mass of disco hair in a red dress or one of glittering gold. Tonight, behind a window, a blue face waits to be born.
I remember my mother gave me a pixie.
Yeah.
Hated that.
Yeah, I know. That was
Stupid.
It was popular.
Stupid.
I want to hair like a black girl with like these little braids.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Linda Lerner, you're next.
Okay.
And it's nice of you, Miriam, to give everyone, to have a place to host it.
Yeah.
Thank you, too. I'm going to read something I'll read 2 poems if I can. This is the first poem, and I have 2 things on my mind, always trying to survive not getting hit by a bike, and then we were talking about the rents. So I managed to get hit a year ago. Nothing broke, fortunately. So this is when it first started.
Bicycle these days.
Yeah, if I could get through a week without,
Yeah, I exactly know where you're coming from.
right?
if you know Fly. She
The
broke her-
Wild
had her
West
wrist
comes
broken.
east on city bikes, and I wrote here a former New York City mayor's legacy because that's when it started under Bloomberg. I jump out of the way as they come speeding out of the virtual world, wind-blown, sun-dappled, winding in and out of traffic into heart-stopping danger. When I first saw those bikers corralled in stalls throughout the city, I imagined horses, the awful smell of horse shit on the street, not the sanitized version of another era's getaway for anyone to jump on, pay at one of the many stations afterwards, and return to a cyber safe house. If along the way someone gets knocked down, hurt, a few keep riding as though nothing happened. Others stop bewildered when an ambulance is called and couldn't be they were in their proper lanes. Or when a truck door flies open, smacking a biker on the head, blood gushes out, and the border between and the border marking 2 worlds blurs. The man taken to a hospital, stitched up and released, doesn't quite know which side he's on, how he got so lost, why or what he needed to break out from. And this deals with, I guess, the problem of rents going up. Someone I know who lived in my neighborhood about 35, 40 years suddenly has to move, and he doesn't accept it. So it's called This Is Where I Live, Ghost of Bartleby. Let's see if my voice will hold out the 2. Looks exactly like him, long white hair, dark glasses, there on that bench like every morning. But it's the hair both illuminates and blinds me from seeing what couldn't be, is. He's back, as if he never left, except he did. An artist who'd faintly nod when I passed by, isn't awake yet, people joked, until he had his coffee. Now shows no sign of recognition, just stares straight ahead. Forced to move from where he'd lived for decades, told me he once turned down 50 grand the landlord offered him to get out. Kept saying, "This is where I live." His eyes on me as he repeated those words to see if I got what his landlord didn't, and brought me back to the time I lived inside a man's love. First place I called home and kept returning to in dreams and poems afterwards. So, yeah, I get it. Heard he went right on painting as they hauled out furniture. Would have included him too if he didn't leave. Not sure where he moved, except he said it was far, like too far. I only know the same man isn't the same one. He is. And this guy does keep returning to the neighborhood every day, sits outside the cafe I go to, a block from where he used to live, and he spends the day there.
Wow.
You know, it's really strange. And apologies if I try to say the whole time I don't want to leave about 6, because I have to somehow walk back to the 6th Avenue from here.
Okay, well, thank you for coming.
No, I'm glad I did. Thank you for doing this.
Can
Next
you
up
take the
is,
bus at 23rd?
What?
Can you take the bus at 23rd?
I don't know buses in New York. Where's the bus?
on 23rd.
Well, when you leave here,
Crosstown.
go to 2nd, right? 2nd Avenue bus or walk to 23rd Street, and you get a bus going west side.
Oh, there is a,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It'll take you up to-
M23.
that would be better than a half-hour walk.
Yeah, sure.
Where do you live? Where do you live?
In Carroll Gardens, downtown Brooklyn, I'm near the F train. The AC, it's nowhere, I need
So you need
6.
6th Avenue.
Yeah, the 6 wasn't going, it wasn't connecting. Can I
Yeah.
get it here at 3rd Avenue, or do I have to get it?
Yeah, you have to get the bus at 2nd, I think, but you
No,
may
you
get
just-
I'm sure it
on-
stops on every
On,
avenue.
yeah,
Oh,
it stops
okay.
on
The
every
crosstown bus,
avenue
yeah,
on
it's the M23
23rd.
bus,
Yeah.
that's it's
Yeah.
on 23rd Street.
I don't think it
That's,
stops on.
those buses stop at every
It's-
avenue, so.
So,
you should-
just go to 23rd and wait for a bus?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then we'll go to
west.
6th
Make sure
Avenue.
you-
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah,
You-
you gotta
I'll
go
try
all the way
that.
across. Yeah, it's a parallel to M14 that goes all the way across on 14th Street. It's the
Okay.
same dynamic.
That would be better than walking a half hour to the Thank you.
Yeah,
No,
sure.
I'll try
It's a
that.
good idea, forgotten about that, you're right about
Hopefully I'll
Next
get
person
your
up is
reading
Ron
too.
Bass.
Ron,
that.
This is a short lullaby titled If Wishes Were Curses. Out through the mitten, in through the kitten, under the moonlight some children take fright. If wishes were hearses, prayers would be curses, skin in the old game, staking a new claim. Old ghosts are clever, 10 for forever, but back in our world we're happily curled. And this is a sonnet. Ranging for a swiftly brokered truce, while battles rage on fiercely in the north, contested dreams will show up on the screen as voiced by talking heads with sawdust brains. While hawks are circling high above a ridge, the wind regales our lookouts with a twist of logic twinned with epic bursts of flame. No fugitives from forays into rhyme, bedecked with Homer's ancient battered hat, try as they might, can signal all is well until a case of bourbon has been smashed upon the prow of Neptune's latest toy. Hollywood filmmaking surely at its finest. Bring me the head of St. Thomas Aquinas. And I'm going to close with a short piece for Pete. This is one of a number of thumbnail sketches of companies that are currently hot beam stocks in this our current stage of late capitalism. It's titled Peon Picked. Peon Picked is a chain of coffee shops located in suburban and exurban areas that are overwhelmingly MAGA in their political orientation. The primary spokesperson is an AI-generated video representation of Ayn Rand. In one commercial, she's standing in front of a peon-picked location, explaining to a small group of people who are trying to decide whether to enter. We pay them almost nothing to pick our coffee beans. This means that you get to enjoy our unbeatably tasty coffee at a shockingly low price. Now walking to her side is an AI-generated video representation of Nancy Reagan, who explains in a cheery voice, "Just say no to other brands of coffee." The customers all smile and make the thumbs up gesture as they go inside. Thank you.
It was like you were channeling Pete Dolack.
I think I was.
Oh, no, you're your own person.
Okay, next up is Jennifer JOUNEAU.
All right.
Thank you, Miriam, for hosting. It's so nice to see you again, Mike.
Tell us about your reading,
Pleasure
Jennifer.
is mine.
Yeah, okay, so I have 2 sonnets too. Must be a day for sonnets. This is really interesting. This first one I had written when I lived in Zurich, Switzerland. We were in a restaurant, coming outside at night. The church bells struck the village, and so I went home and I wrote this, and it's called Postcard. Midnight bells to boom, and still the frayed maid sucking up to the moon. That nefarious stepmom, a fossil in limbo, sexually frustrated and envious me youth, nonetheless stunning. After all, she is a woman too, and I am mirrored in her face, alone and sublunary, as I am installed in this glossy rectangular space. The Alps, phlegmatic and fuliginous as death, a comely myth this, no prince to smack my mouth betimes with sublime superficial kiss or forced glass shoe, white flag in rack, bent in beam, I scribe to you. Anyone this. I, my bony shadow, my frick and frack.
Wow.
And this one was when I was in grad school at University of Zurich. My professor who taught at Harvard was really critical of me because I was a native speaker of English, and he was, everything I said, he was just like, So I went home and I wrote this poem, and I guess I got the last word. It's called Conclusion of the Stone Bard. In the end, I was anyone's gimcrack, stung and marginalized by moonflaw. A time I rose like knot grass in the raw night. Discourse drizzled from my tongue like all seed, fertilizing an unequivocal rent that divided my ignorance from her light. Huntress cast a muzzle against my voice again. Acumen doesn't come accidental twice. I digested her lies an acrid feast of doom. Her garden became a sickbay for the wit, as I, monolith in limbo, was a perfect fit for her jealous nature that characterizes moon. In retrospect, I was the chosen bait for her charade, her false beams to falsify my fate.
Wow.
Jennifer, tell them about your reading.
That was it.
Oh, she went
Oh,
down.
she's got
Sorry, Tessa's coming in.
Tell them about your reading.
Okay, next up. Next up is YUSEF, just in time for his girlfriend.
Right. Sorry, guys.
Hello, Yusef.
All right, thank you for doing this in your place. And Tessa, walk on back and go get a on the corner of the bed right there. I'm still kind of working through this. At dawn, every rocket has a back end flyboy, so watch your angle of glances, liable to burn your hands on jet engines as the shoots unfold. Dawn collects in stone corners, yet morning hates to rise, but there's no more to worry over. See how wretched angles have all left our face. Simply move the eyes. So many statues awaiting all the wine as ours bare toes grab at grape skin held tight by deeper phantoms in olive groves. And the sun sticks its finger into any one of us, can't wait to roll us over. Overflowing caskets broken. These were harmony fields. At dawn, the dead will float from the sky as we perform our magic work. Starvation Ramadan, tent birth for martyrs, whose power have we not forgotten? Death blessed us with tears, a liquid call to prayer. Time waits to pull us into the earth, and what will be remembered mark the intention and the need of borders. In the old suitcase we found so many balmy afternoons ago, when still asleep with the living, we misunderstood the signs, replete with moon ruins. Now we know to whom it belongs. Thank you.
That was so good. It was so powerful. Okay, next up is, let me look. Oliver! Oliver! Woo!
Oh, sorry. Hey,
If you don't see me tomorrow night.
I've been doing nightly Facebook Live poetry readings for National Poetry Month, and I realized as I was reading the poem, I think it was last night or 2 nights ago, that I actually have a poem with both events of Friday and tomorrow in it, so I'm going to read that one. Night comes to the land of anger, a crawling, shapeless, black ink devouring everything in its path with black hole non-sound. I was fighting to reclaim what was ours. You tried to pull me out of glory's gravitational pull, only to shear away in fear. Our orbits clouded by the nebula of duty. I didn't realize that this bilious, ichor-filled planet was mixed with you as well. Now, as I lay here filled with earthquake gashes, your sun's eclipse is all I see, and the unnoise of the nocturnal maw is all I hear. The lights in your window are out. Broken afterthought waves ripple across reflections of seasonal stars. The photonic blood spot does not wash away a stain left by time, aghast at its murder. Regicide so heinous it wanders crazed and afraid, crossing a storm-tossed moor in search of itself. We follow its steps. Our emotions the flip side of your father's purple madness. Our embrace still haunted by bone-shaking finger wags. Our movement careless and jerky in the faint light, dogged by spectral warnings of tomorrow's brief candle. Up and down, inside and outside. The exploration of each other ignites the king's jealousy. He gives up everything to his partner, space. She folds herself around us, a menage a trois with the void, extinguishing our light, a forced separation, suicide by shade. I walk into the night without your touch once more. And this will be the last one. Things will be better when we're back in the city. Your sisters will weave through loopholes in society. Your uncle will put his gun away. We will not talk about the child in the cherry orchard. Boneyard seagulls scream ahead of our arrival. We will no longer lose ourselves to minor pleasures. We will float through the urban landscape, brilliant creatures bleached clean of idleness. Our needs bled into parlors. Last light travels to meet us. Gunshot speed as it is mentioned. A seagull lying in our path silences our trial. A clinical verdict of emptiness, filling us up with obligatory lies, rewriting our return to infinite regress. A play within a play within a play within a mirror hell lost to despair, setting a sun the color of a dreadful penny. We walk towards the unattainable.
I have to say, I'm like so excited to do this because I get to hear so much great poetry.
Yeah, it's really one great.
And the
reading after
variety
another.
is real. Okay,
Yeah.
next up is Iconicide.
Chris
Chris.
Yay. All right, some of you may not know me very well. I've been on the scene since '86. I've been all over the place. But you're curious about some things that I do, you can log on to ICONICIDE.com. I found out about this at 4 o'clock this morning. I saw Pete's face on Poke's book, and I figured I'd come down, and since I am ill-prepared, I'm going to read a couple of short scenes from my feature-length Hollywood movie script, Dumb and Dumber, which appears in my second book, Notes from the Exploding Library. It's on Amazon and Kindle for $17.76, but I got a couple of readers' copies for $10 a piece. In any event, yay. All right. The premise of Dumb and Dumber, just briefly, there's a two-headed serial rapist killer with half a brain between him who works as a tag team wrestler, he's both heads, and lives in the basement of a trailer park. A Winnebago went down a sinkhole. Anyway. All right, this comes in on the detective who's trying to find the killer. He lives on SSI. But anyway, it's only partially autobiographical. Scene, Kane's apartment. As the door opens, Baal is a black cat named Baal. Baal is there to meet Kane. An answering machine can be heard beeping somewhere on the floor. Kane walks over where the beeping is coming from, removes a pile of t-shirts from on top of the answering machine, and steps on the play button. Davis's voice plays. Davis, one more for your garden, Jimmy. Drop me a holler, I'll give you the skinny. Kane picks up the phone's receiver, wedges it between head and shoulder, walks over to the cabinet, brings out a tin of cat food, reads the label, opens it, drops on one knee to stroke Baal, sets the tin down, and scoops the waste out of, and drops the lid into the trash. He then walks over to the bathroom, scoops the waste out of Baal's litter box, dumps it into the toilet, shakes it level with both hands, sniffs it again, nods, and sets the litter box back down. He then returns to kneel at Baal's side. By this time, the connection is timed out, and the phone sounds in protest. Kane kneads down Baal's spine, stands up, and steps through the clutter back to the phone. Kane steps on the phone's cutoff lever with the toe of his boot, and, when the dial tone returns, dials a number. After 5 rings, the phone on the other end of the whole line is picked up. Kane, hey Tammy, Jefferson there? Pause. He is, pause. Just a sec. Kane plucks a piece of paper from the clutter, takes a black broad-tip marker from his trenchcoat pocket, and jots down an address. Kane, you got it, Sweetums. Yes, that's Sweetums, the big Muppet from Muppet Show. See you around. Kane replaces the receiver, stuffs the paper and marker back into his coat pocket, and again returns to crouch next to Baal. No rest for the... whatever. Baal regards Kane for a few seconds and returns to eating. Kane rises to his feet, smiles in Baal's direction, and exits the apartment. Scene. The parking lot at the supermarket where Kane had shopped earlier that day. Several medical examiners surround the body of a woman, which has been laid out on the asphalt, in the center of an open circle of shopping carts. The body's chest cavity has been opened from chin to pelvis, and its internal organs have been removed and arranged over its entire outer surface. Kane approaches. Davis catches his eye and motions him over. You're going to love this one. Kane looks past Davis towards the body and raises one eyebrow. Davis nods towards the medical examiners who are carefully, partially removing something from inside the body's chest cavity and looking it over while the crime scene photographers snap pictures. Davis, lady ain't empty. Kane raises both eyebrows, his expression questioning. Skin. Looks like her skin. All of it. COD? Emmy's working on it, but prelim? Kane raises one hand, holding it palm upwards. Davis, she choked on it. Motherfucker force-fed that woman, her own damned skin. Kane chuckles. Save me the white meat. Rape? My guess is yes, but it'll have to wait till they remove it. It?
How much more time?
Her scalp. From? Okay, I'll skip to the next scene if you want.
Yes.
Okay. The scene. Hell. Red light. Flames. A lake of fire. Vapor-shrouded hills of black rock. Doomed souls flaming, leaping off cliffs. Echoing multiple screams. Overhead shot as camera zooms in on a flaming, blood-soaked throne. Inland from the lake of fire, constructed of bones and of partial and complete bodies, which writhe and howl in agony. Satan sits upon the throne. He's 12 feet tall at the shoulder, sitting slumped back in the throne. His skin shows bright white, and curved horns, which sprout from his temples, flame a kindly, angular face. Satan regards a form, which stands, shoulders hunched, head down, arms held stiff by its sides, fists clenched and trembling. The form is Cain. Satan, bored. It's time. Cain, measured, deliberate. It is not. Satan snaps his fingers, and a flaming scroll appears in the air before him. He waves his hand, and the scroll opens. It is flesh, written upon with blood. Satan purses his lips, scans the scroll idly. You are James T. Cain? No, I am not. Oh, birth certificate says Jimmy.
Okay.
Anyway,
Thank you very much.
I'm sure.
Michael, are you gonna read?
Okay. Well,
we
actually,
got everybody,
next
or-
is
You want the whole
Linda
thing?
M.
$10 will get it to you.
Okay.
It's a comic
Lin-
book.
Excuse me, I don't
Linda
wanna step, I wanna
M,
be
and
careful.
then
Okay, that's fine.
Eugene, and then Manny, and that is our open mic.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for doing this. You have the shy person here. It took 37 years to get this book out. I had a very unusual paranormal experiences, which led up to me saving the memorabilia of Lenny Bruce.
It seemed like a good idea.
Okay, and the channeling came after. And I'm just going to read some excerpts from Hypocrisy versus Mysticism, okay? The court trials are over. I shuddered in fright at my own testimony. I was bold in my fight to win, but knocked down on my feet. I proved my innocence, but was destroyed by legal codes that did not make any sense. After the court ruling, I was sequestered for a hearing and fought for my life with every breath. My trial was distorted. I was driven, chaotically, unwillingly deceived. My case was hopeless. My strength was sapped as I grasped to tackle my defeat and prove myself innocent. I addressed exclusive rights to remain silent until verification of my acquittal, my departure, ended all dispute. As a human being, I felt assaulted and falsely accused beyond vulgar, demeaning verifications. My protest in the matter is stop accusing the wrong man. Assault of the truth inhibits fulfillment. I am a spirit who sees filth, ugliness, and pure sheer hate. I know sadness and suffering. Linda, your writing displays my inner sense as food for thought. Bring a little more. My regard for freedom prolonged my suffering beyond the grave. I was put in a position that threatened my sanity and love for life. I was apprehended, overwhelmed, and shuffled. I obeyed the law and degenerated due to no way out of the situation. Uncommon bribes of justice created a system that does not change. Deliberate loopholes and unscrupulous lawyers have overtaken shadows of doubt and have been overrun by complacency. Due to this insidiousness, drastic modifications must be made. Gradually, I subsided and threw in the towel. Unfortunately, it was too late. My agony was overruled. My past was rendered invalid. Kamikaze reigned, and untruth swept. Alone and betrayed, I emerged an articulate loser. I am sorry my behavior was shockingly blatant. I verily promiscuously periled to disease of mind and spirit. I blame no one who instigated my entrapment. I was a loudmouth, abrasive and beneath dignity. I was a stupid fool for observing hokum pokum and crybaby if things didn't go my way. Day by day, I anticipated my farewell. My mother, Sally Marr, was backstabbed and dragged to her knees. She discouraged the belittling of me when I could not sing my words anymore. She fell for the last grasp to save her son from disaster. The poor woman was put to shame. I am so sorry. Her being heartbroken was too painful for me. My pride was dampened, and I cried myself to sleep. No one knew what it was like for my mother to bear the agony of my plight. To suppress this hurt, I pretended she wasn't my mother. What hell that was. It was despicable. She loved me so. Cocksucking bastard. No wonder I died in the abyss. My blatancy bear with me. People clobbered my spirit. I battled bitterly. I ached and was shattered and scorned.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Eugene, you ready?
Yes.
Awesome.
I'll just let people know I have books available and I have little brochures if you care to get a book.
Recollection of a village on the edge. Happy are the children who giggle and jump, while running in circles carefree are they, with no shoes or clothes. Their elders watch with amusement during a day like any other day, kneeling on their haunches. The village they inhabit is covered in thatch. The sky above is covered by clouds. Terraced rice paddies hard to see below in the hazy distance. No water runs there, no gas or electricity, only dirt floors and huts, windows with burlap flaps. Everything is carted up the hill by beast of burden or by Chinese steam tractor. Abuzz with activity, occasional hikers pass by to peruse the trinkets made by gnarled hands, more yak butter tea offered by the roadside. Further along the road I saw an ice cooler in an open hutch. It had Coke bottles. Hot, sticky, and weary I had always been. I wanted the sweet effervescence of cold caffeine to pick me up, so I went for it. 5 rupees, no regrets. So many years ago now, hoped nothing happened to the naked children of the village on the edge.
Wow.
A little more time,
Short one.
of course. Crossing a bridge. A footpath led me there, followed by a pause. Couldn't see beyond the foot of the bridge, as the tops of pylons near the cliff's edge were capped in fog. Everything straight ahead met its vanishing point. Suspense drove the moment, waiting for an uncertain future, the ghost of the past, just a yard behind me. Thinking, what's up ahead? Heard stones roll down the slope underneath the bridge. Water rushing, sight unseen, under a misty layer of deep burbling tones. Anticipation bled into anxiety. Heart started banging. Drank from a canteen. Stepped onto a swaying bridge. Heart banged loud. A question jumped into my ear. Will the bridge hold my weight? Forwards, not waiting anymore. Acutely alive this day. Heart banged faster, here and now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have the last person of the open mic, and then we're going to close with Michael.
Okay, and third Avenue.
Manny?
Many Avenue.
Okay.
Okay, I'll try it. Sorry about it. No, I get it. I don't want it to be dark.
Good evening. I have three, but I go quickly. Okay.
How do I get out?
The blues cane.
I go upstairs.
The blues cane picked up the beat of my sorrows and pains and put me back on life's broken road with a strut that made the heavens wink. Okay. Destiny's game of chess. You and I stand pawn in Destiny's game of chess. Through the womb through which we're born, till after death, beyond guess. Now Destiny's opponent is hope, given strength by the pawn's prayer. Though with his opponent he tries to cope, he'll soon play the game with despair. For it's Destiny's game alone, not a two-sided coin with a chance. Although his game we don't condone, his strings alone make us dance. This is the School of Scat. School of Scat. I went to the School of Scat cause I wanted to become a real cool cat. I say I went to the School of Scat because I wanted to find out just where it's at. It's by 120, you know where. All you gotta do is pay your fare and go up to the School of Scat, finding for yourself just where it's at. I went to the registrars and sat with professors for a chat. We talked about all the great stars as we covered jazz from this to that. Professor said time to rock and roll. All you gotta have is heart and soul to move up in the School of Scat, finding for yourself just where it's at. I took courses in Ella Fitz 1 as well as Louis Armstrong 2. We were jamming to the rising sun as we bebop the whole night through. It's on 125th. You gotta go there, man. All you gotta do is pay your fare and go up to the School of Scat, finding for yourself just where it's at. Thank you.
Last but not least, we're going to close with Michael Graves. All right, the man of the hour. The man of the hour. The man of the hour.
Thank you, everybody, really. Thank you for coming. And thank you for your work. Really great to hear everybody. Really, I mean, what a group, you know. So, I just want to read about three. One from each book, and maybe something recent from my cell phone. Maybe start with this. This is preparing the apology, and like everybody else, if anybody wants it, it is for sale. Give, a mix of loving son and needy, willful fool, I climbed with heavy legs to where you lay to ask about the years I can't recall. I remember your regret, vague and general, an intention to forget. I declared my need to know, to hear you snarl, what for? And see a nurse draw more blood out of your purpled arm. You joked you left your wife for service overseas, every pregnancy. I slumped and said, I've got to go. At the bus stop, I remembered, once you spoke of coming back from work, from playing sax in all-night gigs, to your decaying boyhood house and farmyard pigs, down the steep dark hill of pines, past an unkempt plot, too drunk and high for school to hear your father's pleas as you prepared the shot. You're dying like your father did, bedridden and provocative, of heart disease and emphysema, thief of breath. I am the damaged son, the violent one, who drank with you, returned to live and fight again with you, your wife, and self within her shameful house, that victim of neglect and wild carouse. Oh, give my unknown self to me, and in the giving set us free. Well, let's see if I can find another kind, sane one. Might be a challenge. Let's see here. Well, I don't know, this book just will not loosen. Sometimes it'll probably come apart at the seams as I try to open it. Well, anyway, yeah, here's the title poem, A Prayer for the Less Violent Offenders. Here is a prayer to sing to yourself, alone on the streets. Bless now the bastards who snipe at my peace. Give them, great Lord, contented release. One-uppers of malice, popular snubbers, quick with their wit, the cutters in public, confident phonies, boys of rude corners, and girls who attend them, contemptuous hipsters, 9-to-5 drones, know-it-all experts, compulsed in their talk, who flow like a sewer, emotional cripples that revel in defects, the rigid self-righteous, who cannot admit a hint of a weakness, volunteer victims whose outrage is vaunted to impress and enlist, tenters of wounds who carry long tools, betrayers of trust, obsessive in lust, myself most of all, in failure to love, who practice a master as those I despise. Thank you. Maybe one, if I can find the phone. Actually, I've been writing these things called assisted living. I'm living in assisted living, and but they may be they may be too vicious to read.
Sounds like unassisted living.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, believe you me. It's really if you know anything about Medicaid assisted living, there's an awful lot of damaged and dysfunctional people in places like that. Sorry, let me see if I can find this here. Okay, maybe I'll try to be quick. It may take a little while to scroll and pick. Where do I? If I start running on, I'll stop. Let me see. Looks like maybe I will have to stop. Let's see. Oh, okay, maybe here. Now. Yeah, this one might work okay. Hopefully they'll accumulate into a kind of a document or a little book about these places, about this place, emblematic of these places. The residents I sit with for meals in the less than half full dining room. We are the second seating. The first is probably more full of diners, but who knows? The food is widely despised, and a sandwich is often chosen as a substitute for the scheduled main course. Once sickened, twice shy. The residents and I enjoy my daily repasts. Oh, I'm sorry, the residents I enjoy my daily repasts with, when I am not alone, include the guy who doesn't hear well and has a bad case of conversation interruptus, and who collapsed in cowardice after talking loudly enough about the bully at the next table to provoke a confidential threatening from him. Confidential but loud enough for all to hear. My roommate, whom I have described in previous posts, the reader is referred to, the somewhat flabby, t-shirted, mild-looking white supremacist with soft brown eyes and close-cropped white hair we all ignore. Bonnie B., the tall as a basketball player and thin as Twiggy, ex-nurse with a pretty face and only one tooth, who talks God, God, God until she discovers a listener's indifference, who is deeply involved in the black market of cigarette sales and other items, and who, much to her credit, is very well bred and friendly and polite to everyone, which gets her a good deal of indulgent treatment by the arrogant staff. And last but not least, the short, slightly built, personable, and kindly guy who, with dementia, who, fedora-hatted, informs us vociferously that there will be a movie about his life because he is the greatest at more topics than you can find in the Guinness Book of World Records. He is, for example, a living saint and has been given a certificate certifying this. The strongest man in the world. His room is a museum. And it is the biggest room in the building, and it is a museum. And with an edge of anger in his excited voice, he brooks no interruption or disagreement. In sum, to quote him, he is a chosen one. Thank you very much. Miriam, thank you so much.
Oh, it was so nice for everybody to come out. So, as you're walking out, take a halava. Anybody wants, bunch of plantain chips, just let me know. Okay, so that's it.
And we don't meet next week.
We meet next week.